In 2016, I had my first $3 million year. The year before that, I made nothing.
I got no money.
And to a lot of people, from an outside perspective, it may have looked like I got rich overnight. Some people might have even thought I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth. Silver spoon, asshole. But in reality, I've been working my ass off for the last 5 years. And there were a lot of telltale signs leading up to that point that were very good indicators I was going to become wealthy. Now, these 5 indicators are the things you need to look out for to find out if you're going to become wealthy this year. So if you're wondering if you're on the verge of making millions of dollars, here are those 5 things. Number 1, you prioritize discomfort. See, most people, 99% of people, they prioritize comfort in their life. They try to relax after work. They try to de-stress with beer or a joint. They go party with their friends. They do all kinds of things to make themselves feel comfortable. They spend money on things they don't need to make themselves feel comfortable. But when you realize that it's the discomfort that makes you successful, that's when you start to become successful. It is uncomfortable to have a problem in your life or your business. Go out, purchase the top 5 books on how to solve that problem and read them in a week. Very uncomfortable because you're not watching TV, you're not going out, you're not doing all these things that normally make you comfortable or make you entertained. You're sitting at home reading books as fast as possible to solve your problem as fast as possible. You're probably also going to the gym to get healthy because when you get healthy and you get fit, you're actually able to think clearer and make better decisions. And most importantly, and this is the key, you're able to deal with stress a lot easier when you work out. And there's a ton of stress when you're trying to become wealthy. Having hard conversations with people, firing employees, telling people that they're not doing a good job.
Ow! You are terrible at your job.
Asking customers difficult questions to solve problems. These are very uncomfortable things. When you prioritize comfort, you soften those questions. You avoid those questions. You avoid having hard conversations because you want to be comfortable. So prioritizing discomfort, if you start doing that, that's a sign you might become wealthy. Now, the second thing is you're very, very consistent. This is a secret I learned from doing jujitsu that absolutely changed my life. There was a point where I trained jujitsu every day for a year, and I got really, really good at it. And I remember there was this group of guys that came in who were very new, and they weren't good at it. And every time I would grapple with them, I would dominate them on the mats.
Tap out, Barry!
Barry, tap out!
Well, I got distracted with other things in life, and I started going 3 times a week. Then I started going 2 times a week. Then I started going only 1 time a week. Sometimes I'd go on vacation, I'd go travel, and I'd only get a few sessions in a month. Within a few months, those guys that I used to dominate on the mats started becoming tougher and tougher to deal with, and eventually they started dominating me. Why? Because they were more consistent, and as a result, they had a compounding effect on their proficiency. And you probably don't realize how effective this is because you don't know the penny phenomena. I'll tell you what the penny phenomena is in just a second, but let me finish this jujitsu story. Recently, I started going back to jujitsu and I started training every single day. And that consistency has allowed me now to catch up and actually do pretty well with guys who were previously smashing me.
Want a piece of me?
So if you are consistent with what you plan to do in your life and in your business, there's gonna be a compounding interest effect, which brings me to the penny phenomena. The penny phenomena is an interesting thought experiment where you ask someone if they would rather have $10,000 or a penny that doubles every day for 30 days. Most people choose the 10 grand because they think that's gonna be more, but a penny that doubles every day for 30 days actually ends up being over $5 million. Now here's what this means for you. If you start today, you might get this much better, but 3 months from now, every day you might get this much better. And a year from now, every day you might get this much better. So imagine how much better you will be if you are consistent with something every single day for a year. Because as soon as you stop being consistent, you don't have to make up for all the time you lost. Now, the third indicator you're gonna be wealthy is that you live your life backwards. Most people are broke, so you don't wanna do what most people do. And most people start doing something and then figure out how to make money from that thing. And in just a moment, I'm gonna give you a perfect example so you can apply this to your life. But here's what I mean by that. Steve Jobs always said,
you've got to start with the customer experience and work backwards to the technology.
Start with the end in mind and work backwards. So if you're gonna start a YouTube channel, know why you're starting it. Know what you want the end result to be. Do you wanna earn money from the YouTube channel? Do you wanna sell something that people watch your YouTube channel and then they buy? Do you wanna grow an email list from your YouTube channel and then sell them something? I'll give you a perfect example. I got invited to a podcast just last week where I sat down and spoke in this group of people and we talked about modern dating dynamics. The guy that runs the show, which is my friend Kylie, he asked me, he says, Dan, how can we monetize this? And so I said to him, well, you should have figured out how to monetize it before you did it. So he asked, what do you mean? I said, well, if you say, I want to monetize this podcast in this way, then from the beginning, the content you're creating in the podcast is designed to monetize that thing. But if you start with the podcast and you don't exactly know what you're trying to do with it, then you're just guessing on what to do. And so when you finally figure out that thing that you want to do, that thing that you want to sell, it may not match up with the podcast content. I'll end this point with one of the worst pieces of advice I've ever heard in online business. And that is build an audience, ask them what they want to buy, and then sell them. I've always done it backwards. I figure out what I want to sell people, I figure out how to sell it to them, and then I build the audience to sell it. That has always brought me success much faster because that's the way Steve Jobs did it. And if it's good enough for Steve Jobs, well, it is good enough for me. So never do anything unless you know where it's heading first. The fourth indicator you're gonna be wealthy is that you have a lot of great ideas, but you have the discipline to give up all of them except one. When you want to get rich, you probably have a lot of ideas on how to get rich. And you know what? Most of those ideas might be good, but you'll never be able to execute on all of those ideas at once. And even if they're good ideas, if you try to execute on them, you'll put a little bit of energy into each one and you won't give full effort to any one of them. And so you will fail at all of them. But if you pick one and you focus 100% on that one thing, your chances of succeeding at that one thing are much, much higher than if you try to succeed at 3 or 4 or 5 things, even if they're all great ideas, but they don't work because you don't allocate the proper focus to them. So a good indicator you're gonna be rich is that you have a lot of good ideas, but you have the discipline to only choose and work on one.
Focus.
Now, before I tell you the fifth thing, I'm going to let you know that I'm going to end this video with an amazing bonus piece of advice that is absolutely going to blow your socks off, and you need to hear this because this is going to change the game for you. But first, the fifth thing, and that is you say no to almost everything. When I was 22 years old, I got a job at the same company where Billy Mays, the OxyClean guy, got his start. And the gig was to be a pitch man. And the guy that owned the company was this billionaire named Jeff. Now, even though he was a billionaire, he always loved to walk around the office and talk to everybody, especially new recruits. And I remember when I met him, he was walking around on his phone, and all I could ever hear him say, call after call after call, was no, gonna pass, no, not gonna do that, not gonna do that. And I didn't really notice it at first. But I was sitting next to him during lunch one day where he always used to provide lunch for the whole company. It was really cool of him. So I was sitting next to him one day at a lunch and I asked him, I said, Jeff, what's the number one thing I can learn from you to be successful? Without a moment's hesitation, literally, just in a snap of a finger, he says, say no to everything.
Just say no.
I said, what do you mean? He said, when you have something you're working on and you're trying to build something, you're gonna get texts every single day. Can I have lunch? Can I show you this thing? Can we connect? Most, if not all, of those requests will not further your life personally or professionally whatsoever. Tell me why. Is this an actual conversation that would benefit both of us? If not, you don't do it. And that was his point. Say no to almost everything so you can spend more time on the things that matter. Most people waste their life on things that don't matter. They say yes far too much. So if you find yourself saying no, you are probably going to be wealthy because you're going to be able to focus. Which brings me to the number one most important thing you need to know to crush it this year and become wealthy, and that